All right, three, two, one. All right, everybody, welcome to the Insight Cafe. I'm your host, 𝗔𝗺𝗿𝗶𝘁, and today, I have one of my favorite people in the whole world, 𝗂𝗁 Amarit 𝗔𝗺𝗁, or 𝗂𝗁 𝗵, as I call him. And I was gonna read your bio, but we would be here all day. So I'm gonna tell the audiences what you mean to me. So to me, you are one of the most impactful and visionary leaders I have ever met. I remember the day we first met at a community building event at a co-working space called 𝗵𝗵𝗿, which you co-founded. And I remember the energy of that day. You were so warm and so welcoming and so friendly, because in my mind, you were like way up there, but then you really met me at my level and really helped me to feel welcomed and empowered. And since I've known you, you have inspired me to push the limits of what I thought was possible. You have helped me open doors. You have mentored and guided me to grow in ways I never thought possible. And for me, I'm so proud to watch you take your work not only and expand it not only in Thailand and Southeast Asia, but around the world as a highly sought after mentor, advisor, professional transformist for company and people and results. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And 𝗔𝗺𝗿𝗶𝘁, it's always been a pleasure to have collaborated over this, past amazing run, this whole decade of technology and innovation. And I've known personally James 𝗔𝗺𝗿𝗶𝘁, however you like to call him, as a young buck who's really transformed himself to an entrepreneur and a sought after coach, and also coaching me in a sense. We're learning from one another, and I think that's why we're here.
Yeah. So in hearing your story, and you've been a guest on a lot of my other events, such as Super Fail, to me, you are like the ultimate transformer person. I don't know anybody else who has been through so many transformations. And when I say that, I mean in terms of career, in positions, in directions, and every time you have come out to me on top. And I'd love to unpack that with you today. And today we're going to look at how can people ride the wave of transformation or have an easier time, at least, because to me, it occurs that transformation is inevitable. I think COVID is a really good example of that. And I would like to explore what gets in the way of transformation. How can we ride that wave better? And also for people listening, what can they use or take away and use in their companies and their peoples, especially the leaders listening, to help their people do better? And take it away. What were some of the biggest transformations that you've experienced in your career?
That's a great question, 𝗔𝗺𝗿𝗶𝘁. And I think really for me, the biggest issue has always been a personal transformation first, and foremost. So I get to be so malleable, and I guess I've have so many careers. I could talk to literally anybody about anything. A conversation may switch context from space technology to cannabis to crypto and all of everything under the sun. And that's just kind of my nature, being just generally curious about anything. But it came from the base where I've actually, growing up, I'm actually a 2-time super senior, which is basically means graduating late twice, both high school and college.
Yeah.
And in every program that I, whether going through Rimrity International School or Thammasat Business School, there was always a set path. People were always going off in this one direction, where the whole cohort and community say, like, because you've studied this or you excel in that, you should go to this business school. You should go take this job as an accounting major, go do auditing. But as somebody who's been forced to kind of take a break and a step back to reassess my life twice, I started to realize 2 things, which is one, every time when you're not just going down this assembly line and on this kind of hamster wheel, and you kind of take a step back and look at the meta picture and say, like, why am I on this hamster wheel in the first place? And where's this thing leading, and asking questions like, well, this person is doing this, and this senior graduated 2 years and then went on to do accounting, and then they end up quitting because they hate their job, and then they go and do masters, and then they go into the family business.
Yeah.
Is that pattern is looking a bit ahead? Is that the kind of pattern that I want for my life? So to kind of put it all together, whenever I look and ask really tough questions, I realize that my thought process improves, and that can only come through having space and time, and which is why I value so much a lot of these retreats and events and experiences, even coaching with my team, to be able to take a pause in the day and say, let's have some one-on-one time, or a few days off every quarter or 6 months, and say, let's recollect and see collectively how we got here, where we're going next, and really recalibrate with the team. So that is a practice I cherish and value. But on the other and the most profound lesson I found from my experience and observing myself over the years, which is, with every failure and setback that happens to me, somehow things will actually move forward and progress and be better. So my whole life has been a story of failing forward. It sucks while I was experiencing it, but within about 1 or 2 or 3 years, I would always be able to come back and say, now I know why I had to fail or do what I did back then, and why my life is progressively better for it. And having observed that pattern, I realized that it can ring true for other areas of my life, not just personally, but for the businesses that I run, for the other people that I coach. And coming with that kind of a optimistic spirit is where I differ from most people. When they fail, they sulk and they become depressed, and they kind of don't want to do anything, which has happened to me in the past. But
and me too.
to be able to get out of that, the deepest of the lows and out of that depth of despair, and say, like, well, you know what? I always have these moments through my challenges, and I get up and say, well, and what are you going to sleep and watch Netflix all day? Are you going to do something about it?
I'd love to reflect on that. Firstly, thank you for sharing. I mean, I remember how when you came on to my Super Fail event, where it's an event where people come like yourselves come and share their fail stories, and you shared your experience of being depressed and staying at home for 3 months. And it was such a powerful story because of your comeback story of who you are today, of like getting into the Obama's Foundation, being Edmund Hillary Foundation, and being a mentor for all these world-renowned accelerators. And I think that's so powerful, and it points to me the nature of human resilience. You know what I mean? I think when we're in those spaces, we tend to self-project, or we tend to write our own future. Like, okay, based on me being a loser right now, obviously I'm all going to be a loser forever. Like, we do that to ourselves and we don't know it. And I think what I love about what I'm hearing from your story is, if you keep going, things get better, or something's going to happen. Right. And then I'm gonna take a wild guess that when you were in that lows, and I would have told you, okay, Aim, this is what's gonna happen over the next 10 years, you would have been like, that's a great Steven Spielberg fantasy movie.
And I guess that, talking about movies, and I guess that's why it's so important to always nourish yourselves with inspiration. I know it sounds very corny, but it's not about this, watching more and more TED Talks, but it's really reading, watching movies, talking to other people, helping other folks work through their problems. And as we kind of absorb all this, material, we be able to kind of harness and channel an energy. It takes
Mm.
a bit of courage, but really just a trigger somehow that's powerful enough to get us into emotion or action. You could be doing it for the love of yourself or someone else, or really a deep-seated desire
Mm.
to, prove people wrong, or some anger, and
Yeah.
everybody has their own different
Fuel, right? Yeah.
fuel.
Yeah.
And then, some may work better for others or whatnot.
Yeah.
But for me, when I kind of slap myself in the face and I'm running down this path and I feel like I'm out of control,
Yeah.
I could always say to myself, well, life's bad, but you've been through this many, many times before. And
Mm.
all you need to do is, kind of take a pause and look at your options and talk to people and then reflect and what are the ways and how people are dealing with it, and then be inspired by, all the incredible movies and podcasts and whatnot out there.
Mm.
And then just find yourself at the point like, do I want to be stuck in this rut all day? Or am I going to have, I'm not a robot. I'm not going down this motionless
Yeah.
path and just keep doing this over and over again, expecting something different to happen. But one of my inspiration during COVID was the Westworld. It's
Okay.
a kind of weird series, but one of the question in the series, and I won't spoil it, was that robots are programmed to do one thing and they'll just keep doing it.
Right.
But for humans, for all of us, the question in the series is, do we have free will? Can we
Oh,
change
yeah.
the inner drivers, reprogram ourselves
Mm.
to just do something completely different, something that nobody expected of us or of ourselves? And for me, I've come to practice that, which is, when the going gets tough,
Mm.
can I, just reignite myself and
Yeah.
carry on? Or can I just say, well, this no longer serves me. Although a lot of people know me as an events guy, always on stage, hyping up shows,
Yeah.
putting on a show of
Hype
20,000
man.
people.
Yeah.
Is that the career that I want in my life? Is that the thing that I want to keep doing for the next decade? And all through COVID, and even a little before that, somehow internally, I realized that I had this great run,
Mm.
but it wasn't fulfilling me anymore.
Mm.
The more I put on bigger and better shows, and I love it, but the more stress and risk and
Right.
a lot of pressure
Right.
comes with, putting all these things and
Mm.
having 9 months of work all plan out, and everything happens in 72 hours and everything is chaos, and
Yeah.
you just have to
So
have
for
to
for context for the people listening, because they might not understand what you say. I mean, what you're talking to when you say big shows. Could you give us some context of like you like from my understanding, I could be wrong. You went from like shows for like 100 people all the way up to tens of thousands. So I'd love for you to just give people context.
Yeah, sure. So I started my career running Thailand's first co-working space. We had the
Mhm.
opportunity to open our doors to different meetups and events. And, it started fairly small, maybe 5, 20 people. And over time, we got to our first inflection point was 160. And we packed the house. I mean, people called the cops. It was a wild experience. Over
Yeah.
time, we packed university halls. And
Yeah.
had 240 people, and then that was 2012, and every year it doubled its head. It became 800, became 1,002, and then over and over. And by the end of it, the apex of my career was 20,000 people,
Wow.
2019. And
It's
we felt like
incredible.
we were going to build the biggest show in the world. And life happens, COVID happens. And I'm forced to not run the show for the next, this year and then last year.
Mm,
Probably be back in 2022. But
mm,
in a world that no longer requires my talented event production
mm,
and creativity skills, but as also on the co-working front, we
mm,
had business models, which I love,
mm,
predicated on packing people
mm.
in a very confined space. And that was the ultimate transformation,
Right.
which is you have two highly valuable skills that are no longer needed for the time being.
Yeah,
What else
that's
can you do?
yeah, and that's transformation. I'm gonna call that unwelcome transformation. Be like, hold up, I did not ask for any of this. Like, you're gonna take away my value. Like what the hell, you know?
Yeah, and I feel that it was, a fortunate misfortune. It
Mm,
was great that during that time I already had a bit of a headspace to take a bit of a mini sabbatical, having passed the torch. My
mm,
co-founders in both Hubba and Texas had this time to reflect
mm,
once again. And on top of that, I had the opportunity to hang out with my other mentor in
mm.
York, who just exited 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘁, and
Heidi.
was, we were just living it up and going to the beaches and really reflecting on the
Yeah.
world and the state of crypto and all the things that we missed. And we realized that we actually had a lot of passion due to help the next generation and,
Yeah.
and entrepreneurs that were struggling during that time.
Yeah.
But actually, the funny thing was, by helping others, we were actually helping ourselves.
Boom. Yeah.
Besides being bored and and underutilized, we were actually seeing that other people were facing way bigger challenges
Yeah.
than ourselves, and we were learning and being proud and inspired by our mentees. And like, oh, I thought my problems were big, having to find myself a new party trick, a new career, and
Yeah.
you guys are like, going to, being sued and complained by the customers and
Yeah.
going to courts and, having to deal with looking for a lot of money, millions of dollars in a short amount of time. Like, wow,
Yeah.
everybody's problems are big.
Yeah.
Your problems are always the biggest until you see the next guy.
Yeah. And I think um that's really powerful too. So if I could reflect on that, it's more of it's like when you stop worrying so much about yourself and you get settled, your vision or your perception expands and you can start seeing other people. And isn't it cool how well a mentor said this to me, Christina Berkeley. She said, when you're going through hell, the fastest way out is to help other people because we're all going through something.
Yep.
And
Can't
that's
be more true.
yeah.
And every time I ended up helping folks, advising of somebody close to me who's two friends who had to unwind a business in a
Mm,
relationship. And we're going through tough yards, negotiations
mm,
after negotiations, a lot of hits and misses,
mm,
starts and stops, and took a full 1 year
mm,
find resolution when all the ingredients were right. But that experience alone was, like it was something I could put on a resume. Like when I was
yeah.
able to resolve a situation that sure, sure, sure than not, it was going to become a big saga on
Yeah.
social media, with lots of people involved. Uh, and we averted a bigger mess and a crisis.
Yeah.
People left with something. They there was a lot of compromises, a lot of unhappy faces,
Yeah.
but it was better than the nuclear button option. And I'm like, wow, I learned so much from that experience. I could put it on my LinkedIn.
Yeah. You know
Yeah.
what? If I could reflect on that, reflecting back on something you said earlier, when you said you had to, two of your highly valued skills became redundant, right? Of organization and co-working ability. And then it's so cool for me to watch you describe yourself stepping up to a plate and realizing you have all these other skills and abilities that you didn't know you had until you stepped up to the plate. And I think that's available for everybody, right? And because, and this is going to segue into the next part of our conversation about the art of transformation, what gets in the way and what can help people. I think a large part of that is stepping up to the plate and seeing what happens. Because while you were really successful in doing in your events organization and that, if I would have told you, hey, AIM, guess what? You have all these hidden talents that you don't even know you have. You're like, what talents? I'm doing this. I don't got time for that. But the moment you had to slow down, these talents became more evident. And I wonder if you could speak to that, because that's what it looks like to me.
Totally. I mean, I think the best way to describe it is I've been tapped up by many companies to be Chief Transformation Officer
Yeah.
recently, and
Right.
I'm now attached to one.
Uh-huh.
But there's a few other, some of it's part-time, some of it's, more involved, really being there and a part of the strategy and then the leadership team. But it never dawned on me, like all these careers that I get a chance to do, being an angel investor, being a crypto investor,
Yeah.
being a kind of a Padawan coach with Coach 𝗔𝗺𝗿𝗶𝘁. I never put it all together. I never had a view that I could be those things.
Yeah.
Definitely not a basketball player, but the main thing that was blocking me was myself. Like
Huh.
I had done so many of the bits and pieces of helping companies transform, running events, putting on hackathons and accelerators, working with executives, launching companies within other corporates, coaching their founders. But I'd always thought of myself as this other guy, the service provider, this just part-time mentor, so to
Yeah.
speak. And then it took people pinging me like, "Aim, would you want this job?" And I'm like, "Why did you ask me?" I was just a CEO of this few, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
decently successful but smaller startups. Maybe,
Yeah.
managed a bunch of 100 people, but more failures than successes, and didn't really have a strong self-confident or positive view of my skills. But as I took a step back and reviewed what I was good at, putting my portfolio of my talents together and my resources and networks, it dawned on me that the reason people were pinging me is because they saw something I didn't see in myself.
I
But I
love that.
never
Yeah.
failed, I always failed to ask that question, like, why would somebody refer this opportunity to me? And then
Yeah.
when I actually had the time, like, okay, well, I am definitely not qualified to be a chief transformation officer. But what is a chief transformation officer?
Yeah.
Go Google it.
Yeah.
And, there is no chief transformation officer school or
Yeah.
degree. And a
Degree.
lot of people that I met who were doing it, they were like, I just came from this other unit,
Yeah.
kind of wing it. I'm like, okay, so actually there is a possibility, So how do I grow to fill that shoes?
Mm.
It was
Mm.
always me, which is like, well, the opportunity lands in my lap. I'm definitely not qualified to capture it right now. But
Right.
what if I did? What do I need to do? And then that was the eureka moment twice, which in
Yeah.
October last year, I, out of the blue, after helping a lot of mentees who were I
Yeah.
was advising and had some stake in their company, I'm like, well, you know what? I could do this full time and actually help the companies that I work with raise
Yeah.
funding. And then the light bulb switched, and two people told me, yeah, I think you should be an angel investor. You'd be a really good one. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, let's let's explore that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can be anything if you put your mind to it. I know that's what
Yeah.
my parents would say, but I keep telling myself that, you know what, if a CEO of a large corporate that's listed on the stock exchange, if that job's available and somebody pinged me for it, which they have, of course I could give it a
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah.
But what do I need to do
Mm,
to be able to grow in through those shoes?
yeah. And I love that. I love every single thing about that. And something you said really hit home where you said, where you realized the thing holding you back was yourself. And I relate to everything you said because that happens to me too, right? Like the other day, I was a guest on like a globally recognized coaching podcast for the Three Principles community, and I did it. I was like, who am I to be on this podcast? Like, no, like we've been hearing about you. Like who said what? And I did it, and then after I did it, and my lovely friend Rob Cook hosted, I realized that I'm like the first Thai coach they had on the podcast. That's the reason they asked me, because they wanted to give more exposure to Thailand. And here's me being insecure about it, not realizing the impact that is living through me for the greater good. And I think you hinted at that too, and that it oftentimes is invisible because we're the plane, we're not the pilot. Like we're just saying yes to things, right? But there's a pilot like this way, that angel investor transformation, and it's a wild ride. So just to know that you are not alone in your insecurity, fear, and doubt. Like me too, all the time. And you know what the secret is? Every single leader I've worked with, we're all insecure. We're just really good at nope. No, actually, nobody asked us. But the truth is, we're all insecure because we're all human, and it's hilarious because I think when we pretend that we're not insecure, it keeps us from a deeper level of communication and intimacy. But that's another podcast.
Oh
So yeah.
yeah, but I
Yeah.
would say that I mean, yes, most of us are faking it till we making it,
Yeah.
winging it. But a
Yeah.
lot of us are so really quick learners.
Yeah.
So insecurity, many times it comes from not having experience and not being quite sure
Right.
or understanding what we're supposed to do. Like I've had a guy who I
Yeah.
mentored who said he would say like he didn't have budget to hire performance marketers. So what he would do is he'll take 3 days to read and understand and be 80% good at
Mm,
something. And he'll go teach a team. But that ability to really be able to absorb any content and
yeah.
retell it, reteach it, repurpose it for your work helps to bring up that level of
Ability.
ability and
Yeah.
self-assurance. But I think at the end of the day, that a lot of leaders, people are looking up to them is because there's 100 forks in the road, but the company, the team, it's got to go somewhere. It's got to be able
Right.
to make good decisions faster.
Right.
And that's where the separating from the manager, which is just
Mm,
doing as
operations. Yeah.
been planned or told, but the leader, which is finding that conviction to say we're going left, not right, we're doing this,
Mm,
not that. It is something that can also be taught and
yeah.
learned, but it comes naturally to some people. But I have seen a lot of folks on my team who started as reluctant teammates, but over time they're able to channel a fire and energy. Maybe they're just bummed by things being run badly, or they
Yeah.
just feel like they have these ideas that
Yeah.
nobody gives them, empower them. And then that's kind of my role as a chief transformation officer. I'm not there, and it's really like just one very big coach with a fancy title, but I'm not there to actually run anything.
Yeah.
I'm actually there just to unlock people to do the things that they felt that they couldn't do, shouldn't do, were not empowered
Yeah.
to, and to do that for the benefit of the company and the team.
Well,
Uh,
to your credit, oh, sorry. There's a book written by Kenning Manning, Robin Charvett, Sandra Cott called Invisible Power. I recommended this book to you. Um, that's what they do. And billion-dollar companies hire them to do transformation because they know that they recognize that any company's biggest asset is their people. And it's becoming more and more obvious that helping those people be more at their best is just good business. And if you're a company and you're not doing that, you're at a severe disadvantage to every company who is doing that. Plug. So so let's segue into transformation, because and we'll dance in this new role of Chief Transformation Officer, right? In your perspective, what gets in the way of transformation? Because transformation is becoming a hot topic, right? And like, it sounds good, but I imagine there are some common obstacles that companies or people face when they actually want to implement transformation. If I may, I'd like to kick it off with, I think that there's a premise that people are, it seems to me that they're habitually afraid of change. You know what I mean? If I had to choose between two restaurants, of like my favorite restaurant or a new restaurant, like my habitual is like, I'm gonna go to the place I know that makes great chicken steak. You know what I mean? So for someone in charge of change, what do you think about that? Or how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I've seen two very opposite end of the spectrum,
Mm,
and I think, being a Buddhist, it's really about finding the middle path that works
yeah.
for these organizations. So I had a client who really wanted to do transformation. We got 15 people in the room. We did expensive workshops, and COVID happened.
Mm,
And okay, we're gonna take a small break. Let's figure out how to. Yes, I want to list my company, but let me figure out how to survive first. Great,
mm, mm, mm,
right? And a lot of the transformation work we were gonna do was all digital. It was
mm,
about finding new opportunities for growth, new businesses,
mm,
but we put a pause on that. And then things kind of surface up again, and then we're like, oh no, we can't do it because there's a third wave.
mm,
So the business was always perpetually on the defense, but the founder is an amazing person,
mm.
but was really just reluctant to embark on this
Or
very risky new
right.
journey that for a lot of times people don't understand. And they kind of know what they need to do,
Yeah.
just don't want to pull the trigger. And I think that lack of just really, having heard the word transformation from your friends and the media, and everybody's doing it, so we got to do it too, is great, just
Mm,
to kind of get people to be curious. But for transformation to really set in, we
mm,
really need the brain, the head of the company, to really internalize it and
mm,
understand. And for a lot of times, people say they do,
mm.
but they don't really have internalized that lesson. They might not have
Right,
seen one
right,
of their friends'
right.
company or a real life case study of somebody that has gone out of business. And everybody say, yeah, Kodak and
Mm,
Blockbuster, that's not going to be me, right?
yeah.
Says all the other restaurant and chains and hotel and malls that say, we're too big. We've got all of
Too
our
big to fail.
security protocols,
Yeah.
right? And as you can see now, even the richest, most successful businessmen and women in Thailand, they're in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
For some of these, some of the biggest malls in this country, we've talked about doing digital for 5 years.
5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're like, we got to do this.
Mm,
This gravy train of Chinese tourists, and we're
mm,
going to go from 40 million to 100 million tourists. It's not sustainable.
mm,
It's great on paper, but the amount of environmental damage and whatnot, even before COVID, it was
mm,
just weird. Countries breaking at the seams, and everybody's just banking on things going, business as usual. Things are just going to go their merry ways forever. And we know that these cycles, business cycle happens every 10 years.
mm-hmm.
So we're in another one now. And it's the same cycle that happened 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And history keeps repeating itself. It's, you know, poetic, it's philosophical. Um, and for me, that was one biggest challenge for a lot of the folks that I work with,
Mm-hmm.
was that there's too much talking, but nobody really taking their learnings to heart, and
Yeah.
believing that their company really need to transform,
Mm.
not just doing it for innovation theater. And a lot of people will disagree with me, say, no, we really believe in it. But if you believe in it, is innovation and transformation one of your main business unit? Do you have a C-suite there to represent? Is this in your annual strategy that you
Mm.
talk every quarter?
Mm.
And if
Mm.
it's no, then no, you're not.
Yeah, like I think you think that it sounds cool, but no. I love that because what I just heard fresh from you is that transformation is one of the most certain and natural things of life, business, and relationships. And to not really respect that or honor it, you're setting yourself up for hurt or pain, you know? And it's so, but this is a whole new, what I saw first is how cool it is that businesses can now bring in people like you to specialize in transformation, to specialize in something that is the most certain thing in a business that a business will experience, which is change.
Yeah, and I guess my role though, I always tell folks is like I wish it's a short one,
Mm,
because the team and your organization should be able to do this by itself,
mm,
to become part of the DNA. And people want to be agile and transformative,
mm.
and working with impact. And if my mission is done, and I'm gonna go back and be an angel investor, or a coach, right?
Yeah.
The deal though is that, um, for a lot of us, you know, the opportunities right now is vast and endless, and then COVID has really put in the pressure on a lot of organizations to do a lot of the things that they were gonna plan for the next 10 year in the next few months or years.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of demand for folks like me, but there's not a lot of people that are available.
Mm,
And uh, and I feel that, you know, it's kind of a blessing in the sense that I get to pick a lot of really interesting projects.
mm,
But at the same time, I also run in a few other challenges, which I excel in,
mm,
which is that we have a lot of other transformation projects where, for me, I've come from the place where I was a visionary entrepreneur,
mm,
started like 23 companies,
mm.
and the height of my uh, crazy run at Haba in
Yeah.
Texas, and have always been a polymath, a bit of a jack of all trades.
Mm,
Some people say scatterbrain, but I've seen that it's quite a recurring problem for some of the more visionary entrepreneurs,
mm.
including myself, that we were inundated with opportunities and challenges, and we want to fix the world, fix everything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that all these projects are so complex and challenging technically, business model wise. We're going to go up against regulators and incumbents and all
Mm,
sorts of, you know, dark forces, that for a lot of time transformation is also a work of how can we do less and have
mm,
more impact. How can
mm,
we slow down to actually take stock and improve how we do things, and not keep running, or, you know, finding future money to
right.
pay back for the mistakes and, you know, previous debt, and just
Yeah.
keep going, and actually, you know, having a plan in place
Mm,
for the team, for the company, but for a lot of individuals personally, where
mm,
do we have a strategy for ourselves and how we lead our lives.
yeah.
And that was eye-opening, which is, I thought I would never have been able to take one of my biggest Achilles heel, my biggest failure,
Mm,
and actually turn that into a strength to teach other to transform it themselves. So
Isn't
it's
that
just
cool how
weird.
that works?
I
That's
know.
so cool. What I heard from you, which I think would be helpful for the people listening, is I think there's also a premise, which I just realized just now, is that when people think transformation, they to me the premise is it's going to be fast, it's going to be quick, it's going to be hard, and like things are going to change right now. And what I heard from you just now was one of the first steps you take in transformation is to slow down, pause, and reflect, and really take a fresh look at where you're at and taking stock. And I wanted to reiterate that for the people listening, because that in my work with clients, that's the first step too. Like, well, let's take a fresh look at this. And oftentimes in that process, the transformation becomes obvious. Like where things need to change become very obvious. And it's so cool that that's available to everyone. It's just that nobody has slowed down long enough to look at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I get a lot of experiences, myself included, where we're pivoting a lot, we're moving fast, we're changing direction, and then I'd realize that sometimes you know, I'm living in the future. I'm thinking 10 steps ahead.
Mm,
People behind me, they're just trying to get through the day because they've got all this workload and they haven't had time to process
mm,
the last message that you told them, or the conflicting message that was said the other day, and this was actually the strategy we agreed upon. It was a reoccurring theme for me
mm,
as well, in my days as a CEO.
mm,
And I had to unlearn a lot of the sexiness that we thought was, this is how
mm,
Silicon Valley does it. We're just gonna keep
mm,
trying flip-flopping, let's go here, let's try there, let's chase after this investor, let's
mm,
pack our bags, go to Singapore,
mm,
meet eight people and come back that same day.
mm,
And that frantic energy that
mm,
I mistaken as the hustle,
mm.
it was actually detrimental to the business, because we were just, chasing after every, shiny object, every new idea.
Yeah.
And then without this cadence of how
Mm,
the team runs and how do we make decisions, and actually having people spending time there and then actually observing and looking.
yeah.
Somebody gave me the best advice in my life was a lady, I forgot her name. I think it's Kelsey.
Mm,
She was working with Tony Hsieh in
mm.
Blossom, delivering happiness.
Okay.
She was running a lot of these coaching workshops. And she said, Aim, one of the programs that we're going to run together is we're going to have to learn how to work at a new pace, because slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Mm,
And your life, you've always been running faster and faster, with a trail of dead bodies and broken bits and pieces in
yeah.
your wake.
Wow.
And yeah, and you've never taken a look back. You just kept charging.
Yeah.
And then a lot of that conflicts entrepreneurs, because maybe they had a
It,
existential crisis in the past.
yeah.
They have this fear of death, and this paranoia,
Yeah.
is for the only way to stay in business is to completely be paranoid, and they
Yeah.
project that on their team, and then the
Yes.
team becomes
Preach.
very uh, kind of really like, oh my goodness, I don't know what's going to happen next week or next
Right.
month,
Right.
or is this project still going to be on or not? Should I
Right.
spend my energy in it? So yeah, those are two polar opposite extremes. And I think
Yeah.
where I come in is I'm like a energy transfer. If it's
Yeah.
too hectic, I kind of
Yeah.
pull people back, and if it's too chilled and slow, I have to pull people out, and then really find that right,
Right.
right place for the team to operate.
every company needs to hire Kun Aim. So
Please don't.
to
I have to work
you'll be on a
some
waiting
days
list.
now.
So to reflect on what you said and how true it is, the podcast session before this was with my good friend 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘁, and he works with like Microsoft, Coca-Cola, Boeing, and he said that he found that he works specifically with leaders, and he said that to what you said is most leaders are like redlining, and I didn't understand what that meant. So redlining is when you're in a car and you just rev the car all the time, and he said if you do that long enough, your car is going to break, because cars aren't designed to redline all the time. And it reminded me of what you were saying of how you were doing that, but you didn't know that wasn't normal. You know what I mean? You're like, it looks sexy, everybody's doing this, right? And then it got in the way.
Yeah,
I think
and
it's
I
really
think
powerful.
that was an article that was shared around recently in the startup community, which is like startups are run at the detriment of the founder, something along
Yeah.
those lines, which is it's gonna take your soul and energy and time, and you're trying to do a lot of very hard things you don't understand very fast.
Mm,
And yeah, it's going to burn you out. It's designed that way
yeah.
because
It's
it's not humanly possible to learn performance marketing in one day and then go and teach it while dealing with Indonesian labor laws and registering your IP in the US and raising fundings from Japanese investors.
yeah.
And then that's why the team is so important. That's why putting structure and processes is important. Kind of taking a little bit of the craziness and all the trauma that happens with communication and people most of the time, they just all this fighting and bickering and that weighs down the team.
Mm,
And I think the the beauty of this whole industry and this movement is that I get to take all the experiences from nonprofits, from working with you,
mm,
from startups, and really manifest authentically, like, don't do that because I've done it before,
yeah.
and it destroyed my life and my business.
Mm,
And I think that was what a lot of these redlining CEOs need. They've always been at the helm. They've always had to rely on their self-confidence and guts and intuition.
mm,
Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but they keep charging.
yeah.
And there must have always been some challenge or trauma in the
Mm,
past that keeps them awake at night.
yeah.
And they just needed somebody that they trust to tell them it's okay to slow down.
Yeah.
It's gonna be better for you. Like, trust me. And they, with entrepreneurs, they had to trust themselves more than anybody else to be able to have that trigger and free will
Mm,
to step out the comfort zone. So by
right.
default, they're a little headstrong. Otherwise, they
Yeah.
wouldn't become entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
They have to believe what other people don't or
Mm,
don't see immediately and say, I'm convinced I need to do this right now.
right.
And they need somebody in the room that they trust to say, like, you know what, this is what's happened, this is the other way, this is how I've done it, and then actually trust that person. And that was probably harder than most for chief transformation officer role, because if you Google the role, one of the key factors of success is having the blessing and an incredible rapport and relationship with the sponsor,
Mm,
mostly the CEO,
mm,
because that person is going to have to trust you to
right.
break the house and rebuild it.
It's true. That's what my mentors told me is like, if you're going to do transformation work with a company, the leader has to experience the transformation first, because if the leader's not buying it, the people sure as hell ain't. They're going to be like, yeah, but that guy's not changed, so why should I change? And that's so important. So we're coming up on time, and I'd love for you to um, if you were to give CEOs or leaders or business owners a gift in kind of in your sphere of knowing and wisdom, what would you give them? If you could give them one gift for them to take away, what would you give them?
Oh, this one's is easy. All my life, I've been redlining my companies off a cliff.
Mm,
And I only turn the steering wheel or step on the brakes when mentors and advisors and people who, they could be your peers, they could be your investors, it could be your drinking buddies, and you've developed these incredible lifelong relationships with them, and they part their wisdom to you that changes your life for the better. And for me, I have always been blessed with having access to the likes of 𝗔𝗺ance or yourself, Nikan, or
yeah,
another buddy of mine, and a Mongolian Olympian, 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗁, Techstars. And a lot of these people, they don't need to do it. They're not paid many times. They're happy to spend 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. working through, all the craziness of life. But through those, late night, deep introspection, these conversations, I come out changed, a better person, making better decisions. And I think the problem with a lot of CEOs and a lot of executives is you might know of them, but you are afraid to contact them when the time comes.
yeah,
You don't engage them often enough, or you engage them when shit already hits the fan.
yeah,
And things go off the rails already.
yeah,
Or you don't haven't developed the relationship or the trust to be able to share your deep, darkest secrets. And you really need to do that, because keep everything to yourself, to your head, and scientifically proven, it's going to stress you the hell out. If you're able to bounce these ideas, you'll end up realizing that these other people, they've gone through it too, or they have a different or unique insight, and you don't have to always trust them, but at least you're able to start to process and see the options, see what happens when one person decided this way, when this other person decided that way. I've had conversations where founders been asked to leave companies.
wow,
I've seen the decision where they've been advised to, and they didn't like the decision. They hated it, and they thought it was the wrong one. And then there were decisions, myself included, that when the time was right, and you just said, you know what, I'm going to take a step back. It might feel like the most gut-wrenching decision, but it was the right one. And how can you know that unless you've actually talked to somebody who's been through it,
right,
on both ends,
right,
right? And those people exist all around you. You need to, serendipity will only get you, so far. At some point, intentionality, I would say, like, I need better people. Those 5 people that make me a better person that I need to hang out with more. I need to pick those 5 people better, and and actually go out there to find great people into your lives. And then, like the case of 𝗔𝗺ance, somebody told me when I was starting my co-working, this guy is amazing. And 𝗔𝗺ance, by that time, he wasn't rich or anything. He was a really seasoned executive who was on stage, was hyping the show at RCA, and I just walked up to him in the bar and said, I need to tell you about 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝐵, because people told me you're amazing. And he was like, what? And I pitched to him. He didn't understand. Then we met 2 other times and tried to explain the business to him before he got it. But that was intentionality. Like, this guy was cool. I need a guy like this in my life.
Yeah.
I don't know what I can give him. He doesn't have any money. but I really just want to know this person. And now he's board member, a business partner, a mentor for life. And some things, you know what? We'll go some way. I'll say a bunch of things. A lot of things I agree with, some things I don't. But through that debate, I get to come out and be a better person every day.
Well, that's so powerful and helpful to anybody listening. And I'm so grateful that you're in my life, and I certainly learned so much from you. And I am so grateful to know that, like, again, that going and looking to the unknown, I don't know what's going to happen, but I got people like you on my team. I'm good, and it's that feeling of like having such a powerful group of people around you. Your ability to meet with the unknown and uncertainty expands exponentially. And I think that's another premise too, is I think CEOs and leaders, we tend to make it all about us and put everything on our shoulders, and it's not. It's so helpful to be around people who remind you of that. So, excuse me. So yeah, thank you. Would you like to plug what you're up to and where we can hang out with you? I'm going to put everything in the description, but if you want to say anything, that'd be great.
Yeah, stay tuned on the Chief Transformation Officer role. I'll make it public pretty soon.
All right.
Yeah, there's a few other programs I'm involved with, but mostly what's keeping me fun and busy is this angel group. We call ourselves Unfold Ventures, and it's 𝗔𝗺liche, myself, and a few other super angels at 𝗔𝗺liche, 𝗖𝗵𝗵𝗿𝐵𝗁 500 tuk-tuks, and Ted, the former deputy managing director at InTouch. Between the five of us and a wider group called the Thai Super Angel Networks, we seek out really cool, talented teams, and we've angel invested in, I think, 7 companies in the past 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're always looking to new talent to mentor, to get to know, because it's the nobodies of today. They become, the rock stars of tomorrow, and then we like to book a seat on every rocket ship, even if it's the toilet seat, and just ride the wave.
Quotable. That's so good.
And just have fun. It's fun to share. It's fun to learn. We'll save a lot of people a lot of money and tears and headache of making the same mistakes that we did, and trying to focus on how to succeed and outgrow us as mentors and angels. The other thing is, I am always up for some coaching, and always people ask me a lot about these days career transformation.
That's right.
I don't seek out it, but if for the right people at the right timing, and serendipitously, if somehow we get in touch and it gels, I might consider having a few people on. But going from a guy who couldn't balance his book in accounting school to Chief Transformation Officer, and then investing in 15 companies, career has been blessed mostly by better people teaching me how to be a better, a more useful, ecosystem builder, and a person, just an enabler and a super connector, just somebody who's always willing to help in the community.
Powerful. All right, and we will see each other and speak to each other soon. Bless you and all the work you do. And you know what? I'm gonna put your war story article in the description too, for people who are interested to learn more about Kun Aim's failures. He wrote a beautiful article about all that, and so that's going to be in the description for you to see. All right, everybody, I will see you in the next episode. Thank you, Kun Aim. Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.